For 14 years straight, one company ruled the smartphone world with almost no real threat to its crown. Every quarter, every year, without fail, they shipped more smartphones than anybody else. They were everywhere, on every shelf, in every store, in every country you could think of. That company was Samsung, and for more than a decade, they were the global king of smartphone shipments. But today, I'm here to tell you something huge. That era is officially over. This is the rivalry that shaped the modern smartphone industry, Apple versus Samsung. Two giants locked in a battle that goes way beyond hardware and specs. This fight is about strategy, psychology, ecosystems, software, and long-term power. And the newest projections for 2025 reveal something nobody expected to actually happen. Apple is on track to dethrone Samsung for the first time in 14 years. That's right, Apple, a company known for releasing only a handful of devices each year, is projected to outsell Samsung, a company that releases dozens of phones across every price tier. And today, we're going to break down exactly how this happened. Before we get into the deep analysis, hit that like button if you're watching this on an iPhone, and subscribe if you're a die-hard Samsung fan. Let's jump in. To understand this moment, you have to look back to 2011. That's when Samsung began its run as the undisputed global leader. They rose fast and aggressively, fueled by a strategy that could be summed up in one idea: be everywhere. Samsung didn't just sell flagship phones. They sold flagship phones, mid-range phones, budget phones, ultra-budget phones, and even niche devices. If someone had a price point in mind, $100, $200, $300, $700, Samsung had a phone waiting. This allowed them to reach huge markets like India, Indonesia, South Africa, and Brazil with affordable options. It also let them compete in premium markets like the United States, Canada, and Europe with their S series and Note series. This approach wasn't glamorous, but it was effective. Volume was the name of the game. Ship as much as you can, as widely as you can, and stay everywhere your competitors aren't. But something shifted slowly over the last decade. And in 2025, that slow shift finally hits its breaking point. Analysts now project that Apple will pass Samsung in total global smartphone shipments. Not profit, not revenue, not ASP. Shipments, the one metric Samsung built their empire on. To understand how shocking this is, remember, Apple releases a fraction of the number of devices Samsung does. Apple doesn't have a low-end lineup. They don't have 20 models per year. They don't slice the market into tiny price segments. And yet here they are, about to beat the company that built its identity around variety and reach. This reversal didn't happen overnight. It's the result of two different business philosophies finally clashing head-on. Samsung's model, expand horizontally and chase volume. Apple's model, focus vertically and chase loyalty and profit. For more than a decade, these two strategies lived side by side, but the balance has shifted, and Apple's strategy is proving stronger. On the surface, Apple's rise seems simple. The latest iPhone lineup is selling incredibly well, especially as millions of people who bought phones during the pandemic are now ready to upgrade. But that's just the visible part of the story. The real engine behind Apple's victory is something deeper, something Samsung can't replicate easily. It's Apple's ecosystem lock-in, combined with a second-hand strategy that turned out to be a silent superweapon. Let's break this down. Apple's ecosystem is famous for being sticky. Once you're inside, everything works together smoothly. iMessage, FaceTime, the App Store, Apple Music, iCloud, AirPods, the Watch, and now Apple Intelligence. This level of synchronization makes switching painful. But what people forget is that Apple's ecosystem isn't just for new buyers. In fact, one of the smartest things Apple ever did was allow the global second-hand market to flourish. Every year, millions of used iPhones are traded in, refurbished, and resold. Apple doesn't block this market, they encourage it with trade-in programs. Used iPhones then flood into regions where new iPhones are too expensive. Someone in Ghana, India, Kenya, Mexico, or the Philippines might not buy a brand new iPhone, but they'll buy a used iPhone XR, an iPhone 11, or an iPhone SE. And once they do, something magical happens. They unintentionally join the Apple ecosystem. They start using iMessage. They get exposed to the App Store. They consider buying AirPods or an Apple Watch. They back up their photos with iCloud. And by the time they're ready for a new device, they're already hooked. This strategy lets Apple compete in markets they never targeted directly. They don't need to make a $120 iPhone. The used market does that work for them. Meanwhile, Samsung has to fight Chinese brands directly, head-on, with shrinking margins. Another key factor. For more than a decade, Apple captured over 85% of the entire smartphone industry's profit. Samsung might have won the shipment game, but Apple won the money game. And in business, profit buys power, profit buys influence, profit buys control of the supply chain. Profit also buys long-term stability, investment in R&D, and the ability to take risks. Apple didn't need to ship more phones. They only needed to make sure the people they did reach would stay in the ecosystem forever. That long-term loyalty is finally paying off today. Are you part of that ecosystem? Let me know what's keeping you locked in. AirPods, iMessage, the watch, or something else? Now let's look at why Samsung is losing ground after ruling the market for so long. Samsung is fighting two brutal battles at the same time. One, at the top end, they're fighting Apple. Two, at the bottom end, they're fighting China. Their biggest weakness? The collapse of their mid-range dominance. For years, Samsung's Galaxy A series was their volume monster. It ruled the budget and mid-range market. But brands like Xiaomi, Oppo, Vivo, and Realme started offering similar or better specs for far less money. These companies operate with razor-thin margins, and they don't rely on global markets to survive. Their manufacturing scale inside China is massive, and their cost advantage is huge. Samsung simply can't match their prices without sacrificing profit. The result, Samsung has been losing emerging markets, one of the main pillars that kept their shipment lead alive. On top of that, Samsung's attempt to differentiate with Galaxy AI backfired. People were excited at first, but rumors of subscription fees and unclear messaging scared users away. Then Apple swooped in with Apple Intelligence, stealing the spotlight and setting the tone for the next era of AI on phones. Samsung does have a win with foldables. They lead the category with the Z Fold and Z Flip series. But there's one problem. Foldables still make up less than 2% of global smartphone shipments. It's a cool technology, but it isn't enough to move the market. Samsung finds itself trapped between two worlds. They want to be the premium Apple competitor, but they also want to defend the budget market from China. Being this spread out is draining them. So what can Samsung do now? The answer is simple, but difficult. They have to act more like Apple. And we're already seeing it happening. Samsung is cutting back on models that don't make money. They're focusing more on their premium lineup. They're trying to build an ecosystem that feels tighter than before. But even these moves might not be enough, because the storm is coming. Apple is rumored to be working on two major releases for 2026. One, a truly budget-friendly iPhone. Two, their first foldable device. If Apple enters the budget market and the foldable market at the same time, Samsung will be squeezed from the top and the bottom. There won't be many places left to hide. So here's your final verdict question. Which company is winning the long game? If you believe the ecosystem is unbeatable, type Team Apple in the comments. If you believe innovation will always win, type Team Samsung. The king has been dethroned, not because of a single product, but because of a smarter long-term business model. Apple focused on profit, loyalty, and simplicity. Samsung focused on reach, variety, and scale. For 14 years, Samsung's strategy worked, but the market has changed and Apple's approach is now the more powerful one. The crown has shifted, but the war is far from over. Thanks for watching. Hit like, subscribe if you want more deep dives, and I'll see you in the next one.